The massive command center aboard Zephyr Prime hummed with the usual sounds of galactic administration. Thousands of holographic displays showed star maps, trade routes, and military positions across the vast Zephyrian Empire. For over 3,000 years, the Empire had ruled this section of the galaxy with absolute authority. Their technology was supreme, their fleets unstoppable, and their borders secure. Commander Vextal was monitoring the outer rim sensors when something unusual caught his attention. A small blip appeared on the detection grid at the very edge of Imperial space. The signature was weak, almost pathetic compared to the massive energy readings of Imperial vessels. Admiral Kethvar, Vextal called across the command bridge. We have an unidentified contact at grid 77 Alpha. Single vessel, unknown configuration. Admiral Kethvar, a tall Zephyrian with the characteristic blue-scaled skin and 4 arms that marked his species as natural-born warriors, barely looked up from his tactical display. Specifications. The vessel appears to be approximately 200 meters in length, no detectable energy shields. Hull composition suggests basic metal alloys. Propulsion system appears to be some form of primitive fusion drive. Vextal paused, checking his readings twice. Sir, this thing looks like it was built in a scrapyard. Kethvar finally turned his attention to the sensor data, his golden eyes scanning the information with practiced efficiency. The ship was indeed crude by Imperial standards. No quantum barriers, no phase shift capabilities, no plasma cores. It reminded him of the ancient vessels his own people had used thousands of years ago when they were first learning to travel between stars. Another backwater species trying to reach for the stars, he muttered, dismissing the contact with a wave of one of his lower arms. Send a patrol to investigate. Standard first contact protocol. If they're hostile or refuse to comply, destroy them. Within the hour, 3 Imperial heavy cruisers dropped out of hyperspace near the outer rim. Each vessel was over 1 kilometer long, bristling with plasma cannons and protected by energy shields that could deflect asteroid impacts. The lead ship, the Dominion's Will, was commanded by Captain Zexron, a veteran of dozens of first contact scenarios. Meanwhile, aboard the small human vessel drifting at the edge of known space, alarms were sounding throughout the cramped corridors. The ship was indeed called the Pathfinder, but it wasn't quite what the Imperial sensors suggested. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the compact bridge, watching the tactical display as 3 massive shapes materialized on their screens. At 38 years old, Morrison had spent half his life in space, first as a fighter pilot in the Outer Colony Wars, then as an explorer pushing humanity's boundaries ever further into the unknown. Captain, we've got 3 large contacts approaching our position, reported Lieutenant Kim Park from the sensor station. Her fingers danced across the holographic controls as she gathered more data. They're big, sir. Each one is at least 5 times our size. Weapon status? Morrison asked calmly. All defensive systems are online but hidden beneath the hull plating. The electromagnetic scramblers are functioning normally. To their sensors, we should look like exactly what we want to look like, answered Chief Engineer Rodriguez from his position at the engineering console. The Pathfinder was humanity's most advanced reconnaissance vessel, but it had been specifically designed to appear primitive. The real armor was hidden beneath fake metal plating. The true engines were powered down, replaced by obviously crude fusion drives. Even the crew quarters had been designed to look basic, and cramped though hidden compartments contained the most advanced equipment Earth had ever produced. Incoming transmission, announced Communications Officer Chen. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Auto-translation is working. They're demanding we identify ourselves and prepare to be boarded. Morrison nodded. This was exactly what they had expected. For months, human scout ships had been probing the edges of what appeared to be a massive galactic empire. Every encounter had been the same. The aliens were arrogant, dismissive, and completely underestimated humanity. Open a channel, Morrison ordered. All languages protocol. The main screen flickered to life, showing the intimidating figure of Captain Zexron. The alien's forearms were crossed, and his expression suggested he was already bored with this encounter. Unknown vessel, You have entered Zephyrian Imperial space without authorization. Identify your species and submit to boarding procedures. Immediately, Morrison stepped forward, keeping his expression neutral and unthreatening. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran Federation vessel, Pathfinder. We are on a peaceful exploration mission. We were not aware this region was claimed territory. We request safe passage to continue our journey. Zexron's eyes narrowed. Terran Federation? We have no record of your species in our databases. Your vessel appears to be of primitive construction. How did you achieve interstellar travel? We're still learning, Morrison replied honestly. Our technology may seem basic to your advanced civilization, but we've managed to develop faster than light travel. We come in peace and wish only to explore and learn. The Imperial captain seemed amused by this response. Behind him, Morrison could see other alien crew members laughing at what they perceived as a pathetic attempt at space exploration. Your faster-than-light travel appears to be barely functional, Zexron commented. Very well, primitive ones. You will surrender. Your vessel for inspection. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction. Morrison glanced at his crew. Each of them was a veteran, hand-picked for this mission. They all knew what came next. I'm afraid we cannot comply with that request, Morrison said politely. We are a peaceful vessel, but we cannot allow our technology to be compromised. Zexron's amusement vanished. Then you have chosen destruction. Power weapons. The three Imperial cruisers moved into formation around the tiny human vessel, like giant predators circling wounded prey. Each warship stretched over a kilometer in length, their hulls gleaming with advanced alloy plating that had withstood countless battles across the galaxy. Weapon ports along their sides began to glow with charging plasma energy, casting an ominous blue light across the darkness of space. Captain Morrison watched the tactical display as the massive ships positioned themselves in a perfect triangle formation. The lead cruiser, Dominion's Will, took point directly ahead while the other two vessels, Iron Conquest and Stellar Hammer, moved to flank the Pathfinder from both sides. 'Twas a textbook Imperial encirclement maneuver, designed to prevent any possible escape route. They're not taking any chances, muttered Lieutenant Park from her sensor station. Full battle formation for one small ship. These guys really don't. It's like taking risks. Captain, they're hailing us again, reported Communications Officer Chen. Same alien as before, but he looks a lot less patient this time. The main screen flickered to life, showing Captain Zexron's intimidating figure. His forearms were now uncrossed and his clawed hands rested on what appeared to be weapon controls. Behind him, Morrison could see the alien crew bustling with activity as they prepared for combat. Primitive vessel, this is your final warning. Zexron's voice boomed through the bridge speakers. Surrender immediately or face destruction. Your pathetic craft cannot possibly stand against the might of the Imperial fleet. Morrison stepped forward, keeping his voice calm and diplomatic. Captain Zexron, I am Jake Morrison of the Terran Federation. We have no hostile intentions. We simply request safe passage through this region of space. Safe passage? Zexron's laugh was a harsh, grating sound. You dare to make demands while surrounded by Imperial warships? Your arrogance will be your downfall, human. The alien captain's expression turned deadly serious. You have 30 seconds to lower any defensive systems and prepare for boarding. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why the Zephyrian Empire has ruled this galaxy for 3 millennia. Morrison looked around his bridge at his crew. Chief Engineer Rodriguez gave him a subtle nod from the engineering station. Lieutenant Park's fingers hovered over her controls, ready to activate systems the aliens couldn't even detect. Communications Officer Chen had her hand positioned over the quantum communication array, prepared to send a message that would travel faster than anything the Empire had ever seen. I'm sorry, Captain Zexron, but I cannot comply with your demands, Morrison replied. We will defend ourselves if necessary. Zexron's golden eyes flashed with anger. Then you have chosen death. All ships fire at will. The 3 Imperial cruisers opened fire simultaneously. Brilliant streams of superheated plasma erupted from dozens of weapon ports, converging on the small human vessel. The energy beams were powerful enough to vaporize asteroids and had destroyed countless enemy ships over the centuries. "Now!" Morrison shouted. The Pathfinder seemed to explode into motion. The fake hull plating suddenly fell away like discarded clothing, revealing the ship's true form underneath. Sleek, angular armor emerged, covered in a strange material that seemed to bend light around it. The crude fusion engines shut down instantly, replaced by drives that defied Imperial understanding of physics. The human ship didn't just dodge the incoming plasma fire, it danced through it. The vessel twisted and rolled with impossible grace, moving like a fighter craft despite its size. Plasma beams that should have vaporized the ship instead splashed harmlessly off its hull, the energy somehow redirected away from the vessel. "What in the void?" Zexron gasped, watching his sensors in disbelief. The human ship was moving faster than anything he had ever seen, changing direction so quickly that his targeting computers couldn't keep up. "Captain, our weapons are having no effect," reported his weapons officer, a tall Zephyrian with silver scales. "The target's hull is deflecting our plasma streams. And sir, their speed is impossible. They're pulling maneuvers that would crush any known species under gravitational forces." The Pathfinder spun through space like a deadly ballet dancer, weaving between the massive Imperial ships while return fire began to streak from hidden weapon ports. But these weren't crude projectile weapons as the aliens had expected. Beams of coherent energy lanced out with surgical precision, striking specific points on each cruiser's hull. "Direct hit on our primary plasma cannon," shouted the weapons officer aboard Iron Conquest. How did they know exactly where to target? The same scene was playing out across all three Imperial vessels. The human ship somehow knew exactly where each cruiser's critical systems were located. Weapon after weapon was systematically disabled, with shots so precise they seemed impossible. Chief Engineer Rodriguez worked frantically at his station aboard the Pathfinder, his fingers flying over holographic controls. "Captain, quantum drive is charged and ready. We've got enough power for a full jump to hyperspace." "Weapons status?" Morrison called out while watching the tactical display. "All Imperial offensive systems are offline," reported Lieutenant Park, with satisfaction. "They're sitting ducks out there." Morrison made his decision. "Prepare for quantum jump. Set course for rendezvous point Alpha 7. The space around the Pathfinder began to shimmer and distort as exotic energy fields built up around the vessel. The Imperial sensors went crazy, detecting energy signatures they had never encountered before. "Captain, the human vessel is generating some kind of space-time distortion," reported Zexron's science officer. "This technology is completely unknown. Our databases have no record of anything like this." Before Zexron could respond, the Pathfinder simply vanished. One moment it was there, dancing between the disabled Imperial cruisers, and the next, it was gone. No hyperspace tunnel, no energy flash, no trace that it had ever existed. Space fell silent except for the emergency signals now broadcasting from all three Imperial vessels. Their weapons were offline, their sensors were scrambled, and their pride was shattered. A single small ship had made fools of the mighty Imperial fleet. Captain Zexron stared at the empty space where the human vessel had been, his four hands trembling with rage and something else. Fear. In 3,000 years of Imperial dominance, nothing like this had ever happened. "Send an immediate priority message to Admiral Kethvar," he ordered, his voice barely controlled. "Tell him we need to talk." The towering spires of Zephyr Prime pierced the purple sky like gleaming needles, their crystalline surfaces reflecting the light of three suns. Deep within the largest spire, the Imperial High Command Center buzzed with activity that hadn't been seen in decades. Holographic displays showed star maps, fleet positions, and most importantly, the battle recordings from the Outer Rim that had arrived just hours earlier. Supreme Chancellor Vextar stood before the massive central display, his imposing 8-foot frame casting long shadows across the command floor. His species, the dominant Zephyrians, had evolved as apex predators on a world where only the strongest survived. 4 powerful arms, razor-sharp claws, and eyes that could track multiple targets simultaneously made them natural warriors. For 3,000 years they had ruled this section of the galaxy through strength and superior technology. Today, that superiority was being questioned. "Play the recording again," Vextar commanded, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the encounter between the three Imperial cruisers and the mysterious human vessel. Military analysts had been studying the footage for hours, and each viewing revealed more disturbing details. Admiral Kethvar, his blue scales dulled with stress, pointed to specific moments in the recording. "Watch here, Chancellor. The human vessel's initial appearance suggests primitive construction, but observe what happens when combat begins." The recording showed the moment when the fake hull plating fell away from the Pathfinder, revealing the sleek, advanced vessel underneath. The transformation was so complete that it looked like an entirely different ship. "Deception," muttered General Tixamol, the Empire's chief military strategist. "They deliberately made their vessel appear inferior to our technology." "But why?" asked Science Director Kelnash, her four eyes blinking in sequence as she analyzed the data. "What species would intentionally appear weak?" Vexter raised one of his upper arms, silencing the discussion. "Continue the analysis." The recording shifted to show the human ship's impossible maneuvers. The vessel twisted and rolled through space with movements that defied everything the Empire knew about physics and biology. "The gravitational forces from those maneuvers should have killed any crew aboard," Kelnash reported, her voice filled with scientific confusion. "Even our most advanced pilots with our naturally superior reflexes could not survive such acceleration changes. Perhaps they use some form of inertial dampening technology we haven't developed," suggested Admiral Kethvar. "Or perhaps," Vextar said slowly, "they are not as primitive as they appear in any aspect." The recording reached the moment when the human weapons began firing. What the Imperial sensors had initially classified as simple kinetic projectiles were revealed to be something far more sophisticated. "Pause here," ordered Chief Weapons Analyst Zorthek. "Our plasma shields should have deflected those projectiles easily. Instead, they penetrated our most advanced defensive systems with minimal energy signatures." "How is that possible?" Vextar demanded. "We don't know, Chancellor. The weapon signatures don't match anything in our databases. It's as if they're using physics we don't understand." The final portion of the recording showed the Pathfinder's disappearance. The space-time distortion that preceded the vessel's vanishing act was unlike any hyperspace technology the Empire had ever encountered. "No hyperspace tunnel," noted Admiral Kethvar. "No energy buildup that our sensors could detect. The ship simply ceased to exist in this location." Vextar turned away from the display, his golden eyes scanning the faces of his military commanders. "Recommendations?" Before anyone could answer, Communications Director Feldtax rushed into the chamber, his scales flushed with urgency. "Chancellor, we're receiving similar reports from across the border regions." "Explain." 17 separate encounters in the past month, all involving small vessels matching the description of this human ship. Each time our forces were either disabled or the vessels escaped using unknown technology." The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. This hadn't been a single encounter with an unknown species. It had been part of a systematic reconnaissance mission. General Tixmol's claws extended involuntarily, a sign of extreme agitation among his people. "They've been studying us, learning our defenses, our tactics, our weaknesses. And we've been letting them," Admiral Kethvar added grimly. Vextar activated the strategic display, showing the entire Imperial border region. Red markers appeared at 17 different locations, each representing a human contact. The pattern was unmistakable. The humans had been conducting a comprehensive survey of Imperial defenses. "Chancellor," Science Director Kelnash said quietly, "there's something else. The weapon signatures from each encounter are slightly different. It suggests they're field testing multiple technologies while gathering intelligence." "They're preparing for something," Vextar concluded. "The question is what?" Intelligence Director Mekvar stepped forward, his cybernetic implants glowing as he accessed classified data streams. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual activity in the region the humans call Terran space. Energy signatures consistent with large-scale military construction." How large scale? Vexitar asked. Shipyard activity suggests. They're building vessels much larger than the reconnaissance craft we've encountered. The Supreme Chancellor's 4 arms crossed over his chest as he processed this information. In 3 millennia of Imperial expansion, they had never encountered a species that combined deception, advanced technology, and apparent military preparation in such a coordinated manner. Options? He demanded. Admiral Kethvar straightened to his full height. We could attempt diplomatic contact, establish formal relations before any misunderstandings escalate. Or, General Tixmol interjected, his voice filled with the aggressive instincts of his warrior species. We could strike first. Eliminate this potential threat before they become strong enough to challenge Imperial authority. Vextar considered both options while studying the tactical displays. The humans had already demonstrated that individual Imperial vessels were vulnerable to their technology. If they were indeed preparing for larger-scale operations, waiting might prove fatal to Imperial interests. The Empire has maintained peace through strength for 3,000 years, he announced. We will not begin showing weakness now. The Supreme Chancellor activated the fleet communication system, his voice carrying to every Imperial vessel within 50 light years. By order of the Imperial High Command, the 7th Fleet is hereby mobilized for immediate deployment. Objective: locate and eliminate all human presence in Imperial territory. General Tixmol's eyes gleamed with anticipation. The 7th Fleet consists of 200 warships, Chancellor. The humans cannot possibly stand against such overwhelming force. Perhaps, Vextar replied, still studying the recordings of the impossible human vessel. But something tells me we're about to discover just how much we don't know about these primitive humans. Within hours, the largest Imperial fleet assembled in decades began moving toward the Outer Rim, ready to face an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The Pathfinder materialized in the shadow of Outpost Vanguard, humanity's most advanced forward base positioned at the very edge of known space. The massive station hung in the darkness like a metallic city, its angular sections connected by rotating habitation rings that generated artificial gravity for the 10,000 personnel stationed there. Captain Morrison guided his ship through the docking procedures, still feeling the adrenaline from their encounter with the Imperial fleet. The fake hull plating had been jettisoned during their escape, revealing the Pathfinder's true sleek form to anyone watching. There was no point in maintaining the deception, here among friends. Docking clamps engaged, reported Lieutenant Park as the ship settled into Bay 7. We're home, Captain. The airlock hissed open, and Morrison stepped onto the familiar deck plating of the station. Waiting for him was Admiral Harrison Hayes, a grizzled veteran whose weathered face told the story of humanity's expansion into the stars. At 62, Hayes had commanded everything from patrol boats to dreadnoughts during the Outer Colony Wars. Jake, Hayes said with a grin, I heard you gave the locals quite a show. Sir, we need to talk, Morrison replied, his expression serious. The situation is more complicated than we anticipated. Hayes led him through the station's corridors to the secure briefing room, where holographic displays showed the positions of all 17 reconnaissance missions currently operating in Imperial space. Other ship commanders were already present, their faces showing the same tension Morrison felt. Commander Lisa Torres of the Shadowhawk was the first to speak. Admiral, we've confirmed what the Pathfinder discovered. The Zephyrian Empire is massive, but they're not as advanced as they think they are. Explain, Hayes ordered, settling into his chair. Morrison activated the tactical display, showing detailed scans of the Imperial cruisers they had encountered. Their ships are powerful, but they're built like ancient battleships, massive, heavily armored, designed to overwhelm through sheer firepower. But they're slow, predictable, and their weapon systems are surprisingly primitive. Commander Alex Chen of the Wraith nodded in agreement. Same thing we found in the Outer Rim sectors. Their plasma weapons are impressive, but they're just brute force technology. No finesse, no adaptation. It's like they stopped innovating centuries ago. Their tactics are even worse, added Commander Torres. Standard formations, textbook maneuvers. They fight like they're still battling primitive species with wooden spears. Hayes leaned forward, studying the data. And their numbers? That's the concerning part, Morrison admitted. We estimate at least 12,000 star systems under Imperial control. Even with outdated technology, they can field tens of thousands of warships. But sir, interrupted Lieutenant Commander Riley Johnson of the Ghost, we've also discovered something else. Their communication networks are completely unsecured. We've been intercepting their military transmissions for weeks. Hayes raised an eyebrow. And? Johnson activated another display showing decoded Imperial communications. They're mobilizing against us, Admiral. The 7th Fleet, 200 ships, is being assembled for what they call a preemptive strike against human space. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The reconnaissance mission had been discovered, and now the Empire was preparing for war. Timeline? Hayes asked. Based on their fleet movements, they'll reach the edge of our territory in approximately 6 weeks, Morrison reported. Hayes stood and walked to the main display, showing the vast expanse of space between human and Imperial territory. Gentlemen, it appears our little scouting mission has kicked over a hornet's nest. Sir, Commander Torres said, our ships can handle anything they throw at us individually, but 200 Imperial vessels? Even with our technological advantages, those are difficult odds. Hayes smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Lisa, you're thinking like they are. Big fleets, massive battles, overwhelming force. He turned to face the assembled commanders. But that's not how humans fight, is it? The room began to buzz with understanding. Humanity had learned long ago that superior numbers didn't guarantee victory. During the Outer Colony Wars, small groups of human ships had defeated much larger enemy fleets through superior tactics, technology, and pure audacity. What are your orders, Admiral? Morrison asked. Hayes activated the quantum communication array, the most advanced technology humanity had ever developed. Unlike the Empire's crude faster-than-light communications, quantum entanglement allowed instantaneous contact across any distance. Priority message to Sol Command, Hayes dictated. Package delivered. Gift wrapping removed. Party crashers incoming. Request immediate deployment of 1st Expeditionary Fleet. The message was encoded and transmitted instantly to Earth, where it would reach Fleet Command in milliseconds rather than the weeks it would take using conventional, faster-than-light communication. Sir? Johnson asked. Are we really going to war with an empire that spans 12,000 star systems? Commander, Hayes replied, we're not going to war with them. We're going to teach them why picking a fight with humanity is the worst mistake they could possibly make. Meanwhile, in the depths of Imperial space, Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Imperial Dominance. Around him, the 7th Fleet had assembled in perfect formation, 200 of the Empire's most powerful warships ready to demonstrate Imperial might. Admiral, reported his sensor officer, long-range scanners are detecting unusual readings from human space. Define unusual, Kethvar ordered. Sir, there's a massive hyperspace signature approaching our position. But it's not like anything we've seen before. Kethvar moved to the sensor station, his 4 arms working the controls with practiced efficiency. The display showed energy readings that made no sense according to Imperial physics. How many ships? He asked. That's the problem, sir. The signature is so large and complex that our sensors can't separate individual vessels. It could be one massive ship, or it could be hundreds of smaller ones using some form of coordinated jump technology. The Admiral's golden eyes narrowed as he studied the readings. Distance? Approximately 18 hours out, sir. Whatever it is, it's moving faster than anything we've ever encountered. Kethvar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of military service. Uncertainty. The humans had already demonstrated technology beyond Imperial understanding. Now they were approaching with something that defied the Empire's ability to even analyze properly. Send word to all fleet commanders, he ordered. Prepare for possible contact with unknown human forces. And contact Zephyr Prime. Tell them we may need reinforcements. As the Imperial fleet waited in formation, their sensors continued to track the approaching anomaly. Whatever the humans were bringing to this confrontation, it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The message from Admiral Hayes reached Earth in an instant, and within hours, humanity's response was already in motion. The first expeditionary fleet, humanity's most advanced and powerful naval force, began its journey toward the Imperial border. The real war was about to begin. Space itself seemed to tear open as reality buckled and twisted at the Imperial border. The massive hyperspace distortion that had been approaching for hours suddenly collapsed, and what emerged from the dimensional rift left the entire 7th Fleet staring in stunned silence. 50 ships materialized in perfect formation, but these weren't the crude vessels the Empire expected. Each human warship was a masterpiece of engineering, sleek and predatory like mechanical sharks built for the void. Their hulls were midnight black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, and strange energy patterns danced across their surfaces, like living things. Admiral Kethvar stood frozen on the bridge of his flagship, watching sensors that couldn't properly analyze what they were seeing. "Report," he demanded, his voice tight with tension. "Sir, the human vessels are approximately 400 meters in length each. They're smaller than our cruisers, but their energy signatures are completely off the charts," his sensor officer reported, his 4 hands trembling as he worked the controls. "Weapon status?" "Unknown, sir. Our scanners can detect massive power, cores, but we can't identify specific weapon systems. It's like they're using technology that doesn't exist." At the center of the human formation, Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, humanity's most advanced warship. Unlike the cramped utilitarian bridges of Imperial vessels, the human command center was spacious and filled with holographic displays that showed every detail of the surrounding space. "All ships report ready, Admiral," announced Captain Rivera, Hayes' second in command. "The Imperials have 200 vessels in standard battle formation. They're not moving to engage, but their weapons are powered." Hayes nodded, studying the tactical display. The Imperial ships were arranged exactly as human intelligence had predicted. Massive, slow-moving vessels designed to overwhelm through sheer firepower. It was an outdated strategy that had probably worked against primitive species for centuries. "Open communications on all Imperial frequencies," Hayes ordered. "Let's see if we can resolve this without bloodshed." The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Kethvar's imposing figure surrounded by his bridge crew. The alien's golden eyes were filled with a mixture of anger and barely concealed fear. "This is Admiral Harrison Hayes of the Terran Federation," Hayes began, his voice calm and professional. "Your forces attacked our peaceful reconnaissance mission and threatened our personnel. We're here to discuss terms and prevent further misunderstandings." Kethvar's 4 arms crossed over his chest, in a gesture of defiance. "You dare to make demands while outnumbered 4-1? The Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate with primitive species." "Primitive?" Hayes smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Admiral, I think you may want to reconsider that assessment. Your 50 ships cannot stand against the might of the Imperial 7th Fleet," Kethvar declared. "Surrender now and your deaths will be swift." Hayes sighed and turned to his tactical officer. "Commander Park, please demonstrate why that's not going to happen." "Yes, sir. All ships, initiate combat formation Delta 7. What happened next defied everything Admiral Kethvar thought he knew about space combat. The 50 human ships didn't move into formation. They flowed like liquid metal, each vessel dancing through space with impossible grace. They moved like fighter craft despite their size, twisting and rolling through 3 dimensions simultaneously. "How are they doing that?" gasped Kethvar's navigation officer. "Those maneuvers should be impossible at that size." The human ships spread out through the Imperial formation like smoke, weaving between the massive cruisers without triggering a single targeting system. The Imperial vessels were simply too slow to track targets moving with such fluid precision. "All Imperial ships prepare to fire," Kethvar ordered, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. The first volley of plasma fire erupted from the Imperial fleet, hundreds of energy beams converging on the human positions. But the human ships were no longer where the targeting computers said they should be. They danced through the plasma streams like leaves in the wind, completely untouched by weapons that could vaporize asteroids. "Impossible," whispered Kethvar. "Nothing can move like that." Then the human ships began to return fire, and the Empire learned what true advanced technology looked like. Instead of crude plasma beams, the human weapons manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Beams of controlled antimatter lanced out with surgical precision, while gravitational manipulators twisted space around Imperial vessels. The first Imperial cruiser, the Eternal Victory, simply came apart. Not destroyed by overwhelming firepower, but systematically dismantled as gravitational forces pulled its hull in different directions simultaneously. The crew had time to scream before their ship became a cloud of expanding debris. "Target their weapon systems only," Hayes ordered. "Disable, don't destroy unless they give us no choice." The human ships moved through the Imperial formation like predators among sheep. Every shot was precise, calculated, devastating. Plasma cannons were severed from their power sources, shield generators were crushed by localized gravity fields, and engine cores were shut down by antimatter pulses that somehow left the rest of each ship intact. Within minutes, half the Imperial 7th Fleet was drifting helplessly in space, their crews alive but their ships completely disabled. The other half had stopped firing, their commanders too shocked to continue the hopeless battle. "This is impossible," Kethvar muttered, staring at his tactical display. 200 Imperial warships defeated by 50 smaller vessels. It cannot be happening. Hayes's voice cut through the stunned silence on the Imperial communication channels. "Admiral Kethvar, do you still wish to discuss surrender terms?" The alien admiral's pride warred with the reality of what he was witnessing. Around him, his bridge crew looked to him for orders, but what orders could he give? His fleet had been neutralized without the humans even showing their full capabilities. "How?" Kethvar asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Admiral, that reconnaissance vessel you encountered wasn't primitive technology in disguise," Hayes explained. "It was advanced technology pretending to be primitive. The Pathfinder was designed to look harmless while gathering intelligence about your capabilities." The implications hit Kethvar like a physical blow. Everything the Empire thought they knew about human technology was wrong. The small, crude ships they had been encountering weren't desperate attempts at space travel. They were sophisticated intelligence-gathering operations. "Furthermore," Hayes continued, "I should probably mention a few things that might interest your leadership. That reconnaissance vessel you encountered. We have 12,000 more just like it currently operating throughout your territory. This fleet that just disabled your forces? We have 50 more identical formations." The alien bridge fell completely silent. Even the background hum of ship systems seemed to fade as the crew processed what they had just heard. Hayes wasn't finished. "And Admiral Kethvar, we haven't even shown you our real warships yet. What you're seeing here today? This is just our expeditionary force. Our actual battle fleets are still back home, waiting to see if diplomacy works." Admiral Kethvar's legs gave out, and he collapsed into his command chair. In the span of an hour, the Zephyrian Empire had gone from confident galactic dominators to a species that had apparently picked a fight with beings so far beyond their capabilities that they might as well have been gods. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice hollow with defeat. Hayes smiled, and this time there was genuine warmth in it. "Admiral, we want to talk. We want to establish peaceful relations between our peoples. We want to share knowledge and explore the galaxy together." He paused, his expression becoming serious again. "But first, we need to make sure that your empire understands that humanity is not a species to be threatened or attacked. Today was a demonstration. Next time it won't be." The message was clear, and it would echo through Imperial space for generations to come. Humanity had arrived and the galaxy would never be the same.